sooty aspect to it, and it sooted up the flues more often. So whenever they get on a tough pull going up a hill, that's when the firemen they had like a sugar scoop, and they'd just scoop it out of a box and put it over by this hole, and they'd suck it right out of that scoop right into the firebox. We have to artificially do it by setting the brakes on the train and working the engine real hard to get this tremendous draft that we find necessary to do it. Otherwise, the sand will just go in and drop in the firebox, and that'll be the end of it. If it has a little steam on it, it's very simple. You have to have steam or air to atomize the oil. That means to spray it, to make it kind of into a fog. And so as long as it has 20 pounds of steam pressure, you can fire it off. So mainly the first thing you do is open up all your steam lines because at night you shut everything off. And so you open them up and you run steam through them to warm up the pipes so that the steam that comes out doesn't condense, turn to water. So you've got to have steam in order to atomize the oil. It won't work with water or hot water. So you get all the atomizer line nice and warm by just running steam through it. It'll first come out as water because the pipe is cold and the steam will condense. So once you get it, you watch it, you can see it as soon as it's a nice spray. And it's just a simple matter of taking an old greasy rag and put a little kerosene or diesel oil on it, light a match to it, throw it in the firebox, turn on the oil valve, and when you see a little oil come in, atomize it. When it hits that fire, it blossoms into flame, and you're in business. And then as you increase the steam pressure, as the steam pressure builds up, you have to keep cutting back on your atomizer because the steam pressure is greater, and it automatically gives you more atomizer than what you had 10 minutes ago. So your oil valve is set and it remains static, same amount of oil coming in. So as the steam pressure comes up, you either have to increase the oil or cut down on the atomizer. So somebody has to be around the engine. You can't just walk away from it.
So what if the engine was dead cold and didn't have any pressure? What's the procedure then?
We'd use the same procedure, except we use compressed air instead of steam. And this is the beauty of burning waste oil. With bunker C, you couldn't do that. You had to have a source of steam in order to heat the oil so it would actually flow through the pipes to get to the burner. Huh. But with this oil, it'll flow right to the burner at almost any temperature. So compressed air will atomize it. It doesn't do as good a job as steam will, but it does a fine job as far as firing up. So, and one thing about using an air compressor, once you set the fire, nothing changes. The air compressor continues to put out the same amount of air. The oil is the same. So you can actually go away from that a little further and be gone a little longer than you can when you're using steam. Okay, the largest gauge is the steam gauge, which registers the steam pressure in the boiler. I'm only concerned with that to the extent that there's enough steam there that I can run the locomotive. The fireman watches that same gauge and tries to keep the pressure up at our working pressure. There are two gauges for the air brakes. One indicates the main reservoir pressure, which is the big tanks you see there. That's the amount of air available for braking. It's reduced down to a lower pressure for the train line that goes through all the cars, and the brakes will automatically apply if anything reduces that pressure. In other words, if an air hose would break or somebody sticks a knife in an air hose or ice pick or something, it'll stop the train automatically. So it's a fail-safe type of situation. There's also a gauge for the independent brake, for the engine brake. It tells me how much cylinder pressure is on the engine brake. There's also another gauge up in the front that when you open the throttle, it tells you how much steam pressure you have in the cylinders. So you know what's available, and that can conceivably go up as high as the boiler pressure if you're really working the engine hard. Or in a stall situation, if the train is locked up, the brakes are set and you open the throttle wide open, that gauge will go all the way to whatever steam pressure is in the boiler. It's a very handy device so you know exactly where your throttle setting is. It's a double check. You can tell by feel where it is. You can also look at it and tell you where it is. The fireman has another gauge similar to that, so he kind of knows what I'm doing with the throttle, because each time you move the throttle, the steam pressure in the steam chest will vary, and he has to adjust his fire accordingly. So if I go down with my throttle, he goes down with his oil. If I go up with the throttle, he increases the oil. If he increases the oil too fast, you get black smoke. So he has a more critical job, in a sense, than what the engineer does, because he's following the engineer's every move and trying to anticipate. And then he also has to feed water to the boiler. And of course, when he does that, that knocks his steam pressure down. So he has to adjust all the time. He's always adjusting. You do have a little adjustment on your valve setting so that steam works by expansion. So if you shorten up the stroke of the valve, it only, one way of saying it is that when you have the thing in full stroke, it's taking big gulps of steam into the cylinders. When you hook it up, shorten the stroke, it takes little gulps. But those gulps expand and they work, and that's where you get your economy of your operation. If you left it down taking big gulps all the time, the fireman wouldn't be able to keep up with you. You'd use more steam than what he could make. It's not a matter of rust. Well, and there's a certain amount of rust takes place, but it's more of a matter of boiler scale. When you evaporate water, the impurities in the water stay in the boiler. You use the steam off of it, and these impurities collect in the bottom of it. So as we leave here or fire up each morning, we open a blow-off cock, and it blows a lot of that stuff out. But every 30 days, you have to take it to the shop and wash it out. Now, to cut down on the amount of impurities, we add boiler treatment to the water. We have a couple of different chemicals we put in there. One that reduces the amount of oxygen in the water, and the other one that keeps the solids in a suspended state. Instead of collecting on the sides of the boiler and all the stay bolts and flues and so on, it keeps them mobile. And then when you blow it out, they go off into the air, into the woods. Mechanically, the locomotive is practically flawless. Of course, each year or annually, you subject it to a hydro test to make sure that it's still got its original strength or close to it by using water, and you pressurize it to 1 1/4 times of what the working pressure is. So if it's gonna blow, we hope it blows then. Well, I just like to hear the locomotive run, for one thing. It's always nice to blow the whistle, of course. But one of the nicest things is just meeting the people that come to ride the train and seeing how happy they are to see a steam locomotive once again. A lot of people, elderly people, will tell you that they never in their fondest dreams thought they would ever be on one. And we allow them up in the cab to look around. Some of them even get a ride, and they're just ecstatic. They go home with a real blessing. And I think that's well worth it.
When the Porter is in for servicing, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad employs a 1930 Heisler West Coast Special. It was built to haul logs around the Pacific Northwest, weighs 90 tons, and operates at 185 pounds pressure per square inch. It offers a rough ride, but climb aboard and enjoy the trip.
Sure enough. You bet.
Bo's gonna let them know about the soot.
I'm all A1.
I'm all A1.
Mr. Ralph Cooper spent many happy hours here in 1959, capturing the smoky, grimy steam age. These pictures bring back many memories of grising and spotting at the platform ends. The driver took it a bit easier around the reverse curves at the River Ouse. Now approaching a very steamy Peterborough. The crew watch out for water troughs as the Deltic uses water for its train heating boiler. The last somersault signal at Claypole. Now approaching the flat crossing at Redford. More water troughs ahead. This time some is taken on. Journey's end, and we say goodbye to the crew. Holborn Viaduct Station on the southern region. Underneath these platforms is another station, Snow Hill, and trains used to run down this slope, entering a tunnel. It hasn't seen a passenger train stop here since 1916. Freight trains used the route until the early 70s. Now BR is to spend £50 million on new track and trains for through running again from the Midlands. At the north end of the tunnel, Midland Region trains run to King's Cross and beyond. The line will be reconnected to them. The tunnel from Farringdon Station. A bridge at the other end of the platform, and a flashback to the last steam freight train to use the route. Roberts Bridge on the main line to Hastings, and the now disappearing DEMUs arriving. Also a Bullet Q1. This was the start of the Kent and East Sussex Railway. This old film was taken on 9.5mm by Mr. Robin Doust, and it's worth using because of its rare footage. This terrier stands by a rare shot of Rolvenden Shed, soon to be pulled down by BR. The passenger service ceased in 1954, but a steam-hauled goods train continued until 1961. A little diesel shunter came on duty. Soon the specials arrived. Locals wave goodbye to what seems like the last train on the line. A loco at each end, the Southeastern. Once the line closed, odd vehicles appeared. Old steam engines. And this took to the tracks. The preservationists had arrived. After many years of hard work, money and enthusiasm, the line was declared ready for reopening to the public. In 1974, the ceremony took place. Mike Burgess reports.
At last, the official reopening. It was June the 10th, 1970.
Well, the other day this morning,
Slowly, she steams forward for the opening ceremony. The traditional bottle of champagne across the buffer beam.
At the very best of fortune, one who may travel on her.
The christening is over, and our guests climb aboard for the opening run down the line. We come to the end of 13 years of struggle. Our story started in 1961 when a bunch of dedicated youngsters saved the line from the scrapyard. We've come through all the troubles you can name. Inquiries, discussions, objections, disasters, inspections, and lack of finance. The faithful few have survived all this and more. Today, the farmer's line has been reborn, and the Rother Valley echoes again with the sound of steam.
A steam train. Come to the country, see what you'll see. People polishing tank locomotives, people like you and me. People stoking boilers and people tapping wheels. There's steam building up in the country, in the Kent and Sussex fields. And it isn't just for history, and it isn't just for fun. It's just to show the whole known world how a railway should be run.
Another line to reopen was a section of the once extensive Isle of Man railways. The whole system had closed down for the winter and somehow didn't reopen the following spring. So after much reorganisation and finance, the section from Douglas to Peel was carrying passengers again. Our cameras visited the line again in 1971 and examined the line and the other remains. The line on the right leads away to the other parts of the island railways. What a sad sight this all is. Will it ever be restored? A change of scene now, just outside London. At the end of the Central Line, in pleasant country surroundings, is the Ongar section. With little passenger numbers and operating only in peak hours, it's in great danger of closing. A branch of the Great Eastern Railway Company, it was steam-hauled until London Transport took it over. Today, tube trains run into North Weald, although for how long is anybody's guess. The passing loop was taken out many years ago when traffic failed to materialise. These scenes were filmed in 1980. Trains used to stop at Blakehall then. They don't now. Today, the train trundles into Ongar station, and the few passengers head for the High Street. Another London Transport steam branch filmed by Mr. Wilmot in the 1960s on the Metropolitan line, the Chesham branch. It has worked as a shuttle for most of its life. Steam traction ended in 1960. Some of the coaches went to the Bluebell Railway.
Oh, that's all come over the back, yeah?
For him to film. Oliver Cromwell was here today. It's BR's 15 Guinea Special. Oliver Cromwell then ran light to Bressingham Steam Centre to retire from active service. Now the Woodhead route. The LNER planned to electrify the Manchester-Wath-Sheffield line before the last war. The work was finally finished afterwards. These are the EM1 Bobo type. They were filmed by Mr. Sean Davis in 1965. A second type, the EM2, was a Coco locomotive. After some years' service, some of them went to Holland in 1968. This route was closed eventually. The locomotives, designed by Sir Nigel Gresley, out of date in this high-speed AC electric traction age. In June 1986, the EM2s ended their days with the Dutch Railways. We filmed one of the last specials. On the Keighley-Worth Valley Railway, a snowplow is being fitted to today's loco. Corfe Castle in Dorset, back in time to the Swanage Railway. M7s are still in use. In 1969, online cameras visited the line. Now there are diesel-electric trains here. The whole area was covered with little industrial lines serving the clay mines in the area. All gone now. Finally, on the main line from Marylebone in March 1986, we bring you some of the steam trains running to Stratford this year. Here's 4472, the Flying Scotsman. The next Sunday, a return visit by Sir Nigel Gresley,